This is Sarah Cumming on ABC Gold Coast.
We heard Dom talk about the average price of rent in the news just after 8:30. If you are a renter, that probably won't surprise you, but new numbers confirm that affordability is at its lowest level in nearly 10 years. The ANZ CoreLogic figures really make for dire reading. The average Australian household is spending a third of its income on rent, and for those on lower wages, it's even worse. More than half of their income is going towards rent. At the same time, approvals for new homes are falling. So what do you do if you want to break out of the rental market and into the housing market? Well, James Fitzgerald is a Gold Coast property investor and says suburbs on the northern Gold Coast are ones to watch, especially Coomera.
I guess as a starting point, the research is suggesting that the affordable end of the market is holding up a lot better than the high end at the moment. So, for example, on the Gold Coast, that's anything at or under $1 million, just holding up a little bit better than the high end, which are a little bit more volatile at this moment.
And what do you think the impact of those interest rate rises has been?
Oh, look, certainly the impact of the interest rate rises has predominantly hit people's pockets in the way of what they can borrow. So I think, if you are in such a fortunate position that you can still borrow to buy today, I think it's a great time because we've never seen a housing shortage of the likes that we're seeing across southeast Queensland today.
This is an issue that seems to be coming up quite a lot, this lack of housing supply, that there are indeed some buyers out there, but it's this supply-demand situation that vendors are just not putting their homes on the market. The stock levels are so low.
Oh, look, absolutely. And I really feel for anyone who's in the rental market at the moment because we're seeing rental vacancy rates at or under 1% in pretty much every suburb on the Gold Coast today, which is just not tenable.
James, we've seen property prices skyrocket in some or many Gold Coast suburbs since COVID. Where is there still good value for people looking to buy, to live in or to invest? What suburbs do you think are still representing good value for purchasers?
I'm still really bullish on the Gold Coast full stop. And the reason for that is, yes, there was a big amount of growth over the last 2 years, but it happened at the same time that we saw growth pretty much everywhere in Australia. What we were seeing before COVID is a real push for people to migrate to those regional lifestyle areas like the Gold Coast and southeast Queensland more broadly. We are seeing today record interstate migration into southeast Queensland and in particular the Gold Coast. So for mine, where you've got a lot of population growth, it's only going to drive up the value for property, particularly land, as we see the Gold Coast have to become more and more dense to keep housing affordable. So I think, off the back of that record migration, you're going to see a lot of demand for housing in the next 2 or 3 years. And so I think it's a really good thing to try and get yourself in a position to get some property in the Gold Coast market.
What about your short list for top suburbs in the Gold Coast?
Yeah, top of the list is Coomera. And it has to be because Coomera is a really unique. You could literally put Coomera in the same basket as only 2 or 3 other suburbs in the whole of Australia. And the reason for that is you've got nearly 10% population growth per annum. At the same time, though, it's accompanied by a lot of jobs in and around the area, as well as some good existing infrastructure like your Westfield, your train, a bunch of schools. But then it's the future infrastructure that excites me. You've got a brand new public and private hospital and the M2 going through that area. We're going to see that population explode over the next 5 to 10 years. And that, if you're a property investor at the end of the day, there's only truth in numbers. And as a population grows, it's going to drive up the value of land.
Okay, so when we see population growth, you're saying we can expect to see an increase in property value?
Absolutely, and that happens everywhere that critical infrastructure is brought on. So you probably see a similar trend, I think, if we go outside of that Coomera pocket, a bit further south towards Burleigh where you've got the light rail extension, those infrastructure pieces make the population growth sustainable. And so, I think as an investor, if you can try and position yourself in an area where the population's growing, where it's supported by a lot of jobs and infrastructure that's going to make the lifestyle sustainable as the population grows, that at the end of the day is a really safe way to invest because it's just based on numbers.
That's property investor James Fitzgerald there.